My wife used my 10-year-old son to help her plot to kick me out so she could move her ex-husband and their daughter in. When I married Claire, I believed we were building a blended family full of promise. But when my 10-year-old son said something no child should ever have to say, I uncovered a betrayal that shattered everything. What happened next wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about survival, truth, and the quiet bravery of my little boy. When I met Claire, I didn't think I'd ever fall in love again. I was 38, a single dad raising my son Mason on my own. Most of my days were a blur of carpools, grocery runs, reheated casseroles, and bedtime stories. I was still carrying the heavy weight of grief, even if I didn't show it. Mason's mom, the love of my life, had passed away when he was just 2 years old. Since then, it had been the two of us against the world. We learned how to build a life from the pieces she left behind. We had routines, quiet moments, and an unspoken understanding between us. He was my world. And then Claire came along. She was lively and warm, with a quick laugh that filled a room. She always had a story to tell, the kind that made you feel like you'd known her for years. More than that, she treated Mason like he was something special, something precious. At least in the beginning, that's how it felt. We dated for a year. Things moved slowly at first. I was cautious, and so was she. But little by little, it started to feel like something solid, something worth holding on to. When she smiled at Mason or ruffled his hair, I let myself believe that maybe life was offering me a second chance. The following spring, we decided to make it official and got married. Claire had a daughter, Lisa. She was sweet, a bit quiet, and lived with her ex-husband, Rick, most of the time. On weekends, she stayed with us. I thought it was working. I thought we were building a new kind of family, imperfect, sure, but filled with love and effort, the kind that grows stronger over time. After the wedding, we bought a house on a quiet, tree-lined street. It wasn't big or fancy, but it felt like home. The backyard had plenty of space for the kids to run around. There were 2 bikes leaning against the shed side by side. Inside the kitchen, Claire had hung a little letterboard that read, "Good vibes only." At the time, I smiled when I saw it. I believed those good vibes were real. One afternoon, Mason turned to me out of the blue and said, "I like Claire. She makes really good waffles, Dad." His words caught me off guard in the best way. I smiled and ruffled his hair. "I think so too, bud. I'm just happy you like her." At first, everything seemed to be going well. Mason and Lisa didn't bond instantly, but they warmed up to each other gradually. Soon, they were acting like real siblings, fighting over silly things, laughing together, and teaming up during family game nights. They built huge Lego cities that took up half the living room, made up wild stories for their stuffed animals, and went all out creating ice cream sundaes with way too many toppings. Lisa giggled at Mason's endless stream of knock-knock jokes, and Mason once stood up for her when the neighbor's kid teased her about her pink bike helmet. Watching them grow closer made me believe even more that we were doing something right. Then Lisa started staying over more often. Rick began reaching out to Claire, saying work was unpredictable, that he needed help with childcare. He asked if Lisa could stay a few extra nights during the week. At first, it seemed harmless. They were just adjusting the schedule, or so I thought. But as time went on, it began to feel less like a simple adjustment and more like Claire and Rick had slipped back into a co-parenting rhythm, one that didn't really include me. Still, I didn't push back. The kids were happy. They laughed. They played. Claire seemed relaxed, at ease. I didn't want to disrupt what looked like peace. I convinced myself it wasn't worth the tension. I told myself it was part of blending, a family, being flexible, staying open. Claire even offered to take over school drop-offs and pickups. "I want to bond with Mason more, James," she said one morning while pouring me a fresh cup of coffee. "This way we can talk during the drive, and I'll get to hear all about his day when I pick him up. It'll help us get closer." It sounded thoughtful, sweet even. I appreciated that she was making an effort. At the time, it seemed like she was showing up for him, for us. I trusted that her intentions were good. But then the drawings started. One weekend, while cleaning out Mason's backpack, I came across a crumpled paper tucked between his folders and an old lunch container. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just tossing old worksheets and checking for spoiled leftovers. But that drawing stopped me cold. It wasn't the kind of picture kids normally draw. It wasn't stick figures under a rainbow or scribbled dinosaurs. It was dark, confusing, and something about it felt wrong. My gut twisted. It was a simple sketch, just 4 stick figures, but it stopped me cold. They were all smiling. Claire, Lisa, Mason and Rick, easily recognizable by the tall spikes drawn for his hair. They were holding hands. It should have been just another kid's doodle. Something innocent, but there was something about it I couldn't shake. I stared at it for a long time, trying not to read too much into it. I didn't want to be that parent, the one who micromanages every little thing, but still, I couldn't ignore it. Later that evening, I gently brought it up to Mason. He blinked fast when I asked him about it, the way he always did when he was nervous. "Lisa says that we're going to be a real family soon," he said. I didn't push him any further, even though a cold, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. I wasn't sure what he meant by real family. We were already a family. At least, I thought we were. When I asked Claire about the drawing, she just laughed. "Oh, James, don't give it another thought, honey," she said, waving it off like it was nothing. "Rick and I weren't compatible as a couple, but he's a great father. Lisa talks about him all the time. Mason probably just drew that for her. You know how kids are." I nodded. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, because anything else, any other explanation felt too heavy, too wrong. I didn't want to be the suspicious husband. I didn't want to doubt her. I loved Claire. I trusted her. So I brushed it off, just like she did. And I kept brushing things off. Every time something strange happened, I made excuses. I told myself not to overthink it, that families come with history, with complexity, that I was just adjusting to it all. Until one day, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It happened last month. A client canceled a meeting last minute, so I packed up early and grabbed some Chinese takeout on the way home. I picked up spring rolls, dumplings, all of Mason's favorites, planning a surprise dinner and movie night. I pictured the look on his face, the joy in those little eyes when he saw what I brought home. But when I stepped inside the house, something felt off. It was quiet, too quiet. Normally, I'd walk into the sound of Claire's music playing on, the stereo, or the hum of the dishwasher, or Mason laughing at cartoons from the living room. But that day, the house was still. No clatter in the kitchen, no laughter, no sound. I stepped carefully through the hallway, the takeout bag rustling slightly in my hand. I didn't call out. Part of me thought I'd sneak up on Mason, jump out from a doorway, give him a playful scare. He loved when I did that. Then I heard Claire's voice. It was coming from the kitchen, low and soft, almost sing-song. I slowed my steps and stood quietly just outside the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. Then I heard Mason's voice. He sounded small, uncertain. The tone in his voice made my stomach twist. "And if I do that, Lisa will live with us forever, right?" he asked. My feet froze in place. Claire's voice followed, sweet and comforting. Too comforting. "Yes, my sweetheart," she replied gently. "Lisa and Rick. You love Rick, don't you? Remember that huge ice cream sundae he got you? And the trip to the zoo? He's so fun, right?" I felt the blood drain from my face. Ice cream with Rick? A trip to the zoo? What was she talking about? I stood there, heart pounding, listening to my own son recall memories I hadn't been part of. Claire had taken Mason on outings with her ex-husband, and I had no idea. She had told me she was taking the kids on simple play dates, or that a family friend was helping bring Lisa over when Rick was busy. I never realized the family friend was Rick, and then I heard the words that cracked something deep inside me. "Remember, you'll call Grandma Mason, okay?" Claire said sweetly. "And you're going to tell her that Daddy yells a lot, that you're scared, that he broke your toy when he pushed me, and then Grandma will call the police, and they'll take him to the good place. He'll stay there and be happy. Then it will just be us, okay?" There was a pause. Then, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from him, Mason replied, "Okay, Mom, I'll do that. I love Lisa. I want her to be with us forever." Those were the last words I heard before I quietly backed away from the hallway, trying to keep my footsteps silent. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was something worse. Claire wasn't just trying to push me out of the picture. She was using Mason, twisting his heart, asking him to lie, to become part of a plan that would tear us apart. My chest felt tight. My hands were shaking. I couldn't confront her, not like that. I didn't trust myself to speak, let alone hold a steady voice. So I turned away and climbed the stairs, one hand gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My legs felt heavy, almost numb, and by the time I reached the top, my whole body was trembling. I walked into Mason's room and closed the door gently behind me. The space was filled with the familiar soft light filtering through the curtains. His books lined neatly on the shelf, and the same glowing space decals we had stuck to the walls together when he was 6. Stars, planets, and a tiny astronaut floated on the blue paint, faded now with time. One of the stickers near the window was peeling, the little astronaut barely holding on. I walked over and smoothed it back down with my thumb. It was something small, something pointless, but it helped me breathe. For just a second, I could feel grounded. I sat down on his bed, pulled my knees to my chest, and stared up at the ceiling. The silence filled the room like water, wrapping around me. I expected to feel anger, to explode, to pace the floor or cry out, but none of that came. I just felt empty, like someone had reached inside me and taken everything good, like love, had been scooped out, and all that remained was a hollow ache. I stayed there in the dark, motionless, and then, after what felt like hours, the door creaked open. Mason stood in the doorway. He was barefoot, hugging his backpack to his chest, his small frame outlined by the light from the hallway. He looked older than 10 in that moment. Not in size, but in the quiet way he moved, the heavy way he stood. He didn't say anything. He just walked into the room, climbed into my lap like he had done so many times before when he was scared of thunder or nightmares. His head rested against my chest, and I felt the soft rise and fall of his breath before I heard his voice. "Daddy?" he whispered. "I have to tell you something." I wrapped my arms around him gently. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "You can tell me anything, my boy." He didn't hesitate. "She wants me to call Grandma," he said. "Claire, she wants me to say that you were mean, that you yell and break my stuff, so the police will come and take you away." I froze. Mason kept talking, his voice steady now, like he had held it in too long and just needed it out. "Claire said if I did that, Rick and Lisa could live here forever, but I didn't do it. I told her I would, but I lied." The room was still. His words filled the air and settled there like dust in sunlight. "Claire is like the evil stepmother in stories," he said after a pause. "I'd never hurt you, Daddy. I won't lie about you." I couldn't speak. I didn't even try. I just held him tighter, pressed my cheek to his soft hair, and let the silence carry everything that words couldn't. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about Claire or Rick or any of it. I was thinking about my son, my brave, honest boy, who had chosen truth over pressure, who had chosen love over fear. He was just 10 years old, but in that moment he had saved me. I stayed with him until the sky turned pale. The sun slowly rose, stretching soft light across the walls. When I finally stood up, my joints were stiff, but my mind was clear. I tucked Mason under the blankets, kissed his forehead, and quietly walked down the stairs. The house was quiet. Again, but not the same kind of quiet as the night before. This time it was filled with something else. Clarity. Resolve. A pale strip of morning sunlight crawled across the kitchen floor as I stepped into the room. Claire stood at the counter, her back turned, pouring coffee like it was any other day. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts, the blue one with the faded sleeves. Her hair was in a loose braid down her back. In that moment, she looked soft, familiar, like someone I had once loved, someone I had once believed in, but I didn't feel anything warm toward her now. Nothing soft, nothing kind. She turned slightly at the sound of my footsteps. "James," she said lightly, "you're up early. Want some coffee? I bought some of that hazelnut syrup you like." I didn't answer. I sighed deeply and cracked my knuckles. My chest was tight, but my mind was steady. It was time. "I need you to pack your things," I said, my voice calm but firm. Claire looked up slowly, her brow furrowed with confusion. "What? You're leaving today, Claire," I said. The room went quiet. Too quiet. For a moment, it felt like the whole house held its breath. She stared at me, as if waiting for a punchline. "James, what are you talking about? Is there some spa trip planned or something?" She gave a short laugh, nervous and uncertain. But I didn't smile. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her. And then I told her the truth. "I know what you tried to do," I said. "I heard everything. My son, Claire, you pulled my son into your mess. How sick are you?" I watched her closely. The mug in her hand trembled slightly before she carefully, too carefully, set it down on the counter. Her hands were slow, deliberate, like she was trying to maintain control, hold on to the moment before everything came crashing down. "You must have misunderstood," she said softly. "Mason is only 10, James. He's confused." I shook my head. "No, he told me everything. I sat with him last night while he cried. He carried something no child should ever have to, and he carried it alone. That's not confusion. That's fear." Her face didn't show regret, not real sorrow. Something else flickered in her eyes, something cold and calculating. Her mouth opened like she might explain or spin some excuse, but then she closed it again. She knew I wasn't buying anything, and in that silence, I saw it. All clearly. Claire didn't want me. Not really. She wanted the life I had. The house, the reliable income, the insurance. She liked the way our world looked from the outside. Rick might have been familiar comfort for her, a piece of her past, but I was the safety net. I was the one with stability, and she had decided. She didn't want to choose between the two, so she created a plan, a twisted one, to have both. She would frame me, make me look unstable, dangerous. She'd win sympathy, maybe even custody. Then she could have her fantasy life with Rick and Lisa while still holding on to everything I had worked for. I'd just be the man she escaped from. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said quietly. "Because you don't get a second chance with a child," I answered. "Once you show them who you really are, once they see how cold and calculated you can be, they don't forget. I want you out of my son's life." Her expression hardened. She took a small step back, her eyes glassy. "If you escalate this, James, they'll take my daughter from me." I looked her in the eye. Maybe they should. She didn't argue after that. She didn't plead or shout. She just stood there for a long second, then gave one small nod. Her lips pressed tightly together, and her eyes shimmered. But no more words came. She walked past me, quiet and pale. I didn't move. I just watched her go. Later that afternoon, she left the house carrying 2 suitcases and Lisa's overnight bag. Her mascara streaked faintly along the collar of her shirt, and she sniffled as she walked to her car. Still, she didn't look back. She got in and drove off. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the street even after her car disappeared from view. The house was still again, just like the morning after Mason had told me the truth. But this time, I felt clarity instead of confusion. The full story didn't come all at once. It arrived in pieces, bits of carelessness on their part, mistakes they had made because they thought I wouldn't notice. Rick had messaged Claire from a shared iPad, the one Lisa used for homework when she stayed with us. Claire had logged into her email on my laptop once and never signed out. She must have forgotten. My lawyer didn't need long. In less than 2 days, we had everything. Photos of Rick sitting at our kitchen table, my kitchen, while I was at work. Text messages between Claire and Rick, openly discussing how they'd build a new family, how Mason was so impressionable, how I'd handle the exit if it looked emotional enough. All her words, not mine. They thought they could erase me, like I was just a placeholder in their story. Like they could build a new life and push me out quietly. But they didn't count on Mason, just 10 years old, but brave enough to know what was right and what was wrong, brave enough to say it out loud when it mattered most. He was my son, and in the end, he saved us both from lives that would have left us separated, confused, and broken. I filed for divorce immediately. There was no hesitation. I filed for full custody too. That part wasn't even a question. I changed the locks on the house. I called the bank and cleared every account of Claire's name. I wanted a clean break. Not just for me, but for Mason. Claire sent a few messages during those first few days, short ones. I didn't mean it like that. It was a joke, James. You're ruining our perfect little family. But I didn't reply. I didn't even think about replying. That part of our life was closed. Whatever picture she thought she was painting was gone. Mason and I stayed close, inseparable. We leaned on each other in those early days. He had nightmares at first. For the first few weeks, he'd wake up sweating and crying. Sometimes he asked if the police were coming that night. Other times he cried about evil stepmothers and poisonous apples. His dreams were tangled and strange, filled with fear and confusion. Every night, I sat by his bed until he fell asleep again, just like I used to when he was little. I rubbed his back. I whispered to him. I stayed with him through every tear and every question. We started walking to school together again, just the two of us, like old times. I packed his lunches, slipping in little notes like I did when he was in first grade. We made a list of every zoo we wanted to visit, every theme park we'd explore, every ice cream shop that needed our review. It became our thing, building a future that belonged only to us. One night, while he was eating mac and cheese at the kitchen table, he looked up at me with wide, careful eyes. "You're not mad at me, right, Dad?" I smiled at him. "Never, bud." His shoulders relaxed. He smiled too. It was small, but proud, the kind of smile that says everything's going to be okay. A few weeks after the divorce papers were signed, I opened the fridge and found one of Mason's drawings stuck under a magnet. It was another one of his stick figure families. But this time, things were different. There were 4 figures again. One was me, one was him, one was our dog, Rusty. And next to us, a giant slice of pizza with bacon for arms. No Claire, no Lisa, no Rick, just us. And in that quiet moment, staring at those silly stick figures, I realized something important. We didn't lose a family. We escaped one. A messy, complicated, one that wasn't ever really ours. And now we were right back where we started, together again,